Welcome back, part 2 of this Ramshackle house build, and this is the Bogan Show. I'm Scotty Hardwick, and let's see how much I was able to get done. But first, a message from our sponsors. Thank you very much. Have you ever wanted to learn how to convincingly kill or be killed by your friends with swords, safely, and without actually committing murder? This video is brought to you by the New Zealand Stage and Screen Combat School. From teaching actors how to fight on film, to hosting school holiday programs from ages 5 to 15 years old. Check the NZSSCS out. Or maybe, ask them to host your next birthday or engagement party. Their staff are both instructive and friendly. Here is a picture of me in chainmail, wearing a tabard, and holding a Klingon bat'leth, just to show you how awesome the New Zealand Stage and Screen Combat School is. I will have all the information in the description, and I might even see you there. Now, on with the video. That Bogan plays cards! Alright, so I started this video getting those coffee stirrers that you would have seen in part 1 ready to start creating the roof rafters. I'm going to use that cubed up poster board, which is basically just plastic poster board, to use as tiles. This is the first time that I have tried to use this particular method, so this is definitely the trial and error part, and there was a point where I was a little bit worried. I did not think that it was going to work out the way that I wanted it, but let's see how that ended up. So I used the coffee stirrers to create the rafters. Fun fact, I put a little bit too much of the plaster around, so the the hot glue was not doing a very good job at sticking. However, I did end up falling back on my wonderful friend PVA to re-stick it down afterwards. The house that I'm currently in is actually rather cold, and seeing that we were at this point sitting at about 6 degrees outside, by the time I applied the hot glue, believe it or not, it was practically hardened and dry and useless by the time it actually stuck itself down. So I did have to do a little bit of behind the scenes adhering to get it looking good. However, it is starting to take shape, which is very, very cool. You will notice as I'm moving this model around a little bit that there are a few gaps in different places. Don't worry about having gaps when you're creating these kinds of things. We are able to cover a lot of that off during the flocking stage. Flocking can be really good to hide some of those unintentional mistakes and things like that. Alright, so I cut out a couple of XPS pieces of foam, or pieces of XPS foam. I am going to use them as posts. So what I did is I grabbed the little pen knife, and I just started lightly going up and down the what are now posts to give a bit of a wooden texture look. If you have one, you could also use a wire brush or something similar to give a similar effect. You'll then notice after I have finished these that I tried to hot glue them into the corners. However, yet again I encountered the same problem about it not adhering very well. I did end up, after a bit of a frustrating painting stage, I ended up leaving it to dry with PVA glue, because everyone loves a little bit of PVA, and obviously it does the job better than hot glue at times. But it's still looking pretty cool. Alright, so next stage, and at this point I was rushing. Something I will recommend is mixing a little bit of Mod Podge or PVA to the black paint before putting it on, because it acts as a very good primer, if you wish, or a poor man's primer, as I heard another YouTuber recently mention it. And I mean, since we're all working towards a budget on this channel, poor man's primer is the best kind of primer for me. However, I did forget that stage. If you are trying to do something similar to this build, I do recommend adding that PVA or Mod Podge with the paint in order for it to, I want to say, the paint to stick a little bit better, because I did have to reapply the paint with a little bit of PVA after this, because it wasn't sticking very well due to the plaster. But this is how we learn. You might notice as I'm painting this that a couple of the posts that I stuck on fell off. I was so frustrated about it, but realistically I just had to stand up and move away for a bit, have a bit of a breather, have a cup of tea, and then I came back after I'd stuck them all on with PVA glue. Right, so I got some grey paint, and I used a towel, a dirty old towel that was about to go in the wash anyway. Kids, don't use your parents' towels to do this. And I just lightly put over the grey, and then left it to dry. This is a darker grey. I then mixed a little bit of grey with some white, and did an even finer dry brush over that so that all the little details and bits and pieces would come out. Then, of course, I painted the posts burnt umber, and then I used a little bit of that same brown paint, added a tiny little bit of grey, and painted the roof. Now, the reason I wanted to paint the roof a little bit more of a natural browny colour is because I will be putting some flocking on the roof too, as this is going to be a bit of a ramshackle abandoned house look. It's going to have quite a bit of grass and growing things and flowers on the roof too. So here you have the white paint and of course a little bit of grey, and then I did a dry brush so that all of the little bits, all the details, all the things that we stuck on in part 1 all come out and really pop, which is really cool. Try to make sure you don't get too much on the beams, the wooden beams that we've got, but if you do, hey, that's fine, you just need to touch that up again. What I haven't said is I also used that same burnt umber to paint the windows and the doors, because I wasn't planning on getting anything too flash to stick on the doors or windows. By just painting them simple brown, it does look like there is a boarded window and of course a closed door. Then I grabbed some more PVA and I wiped it all using a very rough brush over the roof, ready for the flocking. This stuff dries clear anyway, so the more the better. And then I just grabbed my, I've got longer turf, not as fine first, and I put a bit on there, and then I grabbed my blended fine turf to fill in all the rest of the gaps. So these are both Woodland Scenics turf types. It's always good to get a bit of a mixture, because how often do you see one type of grass growing somewhere? It's usually a big mixture of all sorts. Then I grabbed some more blended turf and I mixed some PVA, and you would have seen this process before in some of my other videos. I grabbed my penknife, exchanged the blade to more of a I wouldn't even know what you call that, but more of something that's going to apply this a little bit easier, and then I proceeded to mix it together and turn the house on its side so that we can start patching up some of these holes. This is when it finally started to come together. There were points right up until this moment where I started doubting what I was creating, but that's okay, because it's okay as a crafter to start second guessing things, because I mean, this was a bit of an experiment with the type of material that I was using for the roof as well, and not all crafts go as planned. at the end of the day, as long as you're having fun and you're enjoying yourself when you're making these builds, it's going to be fine, and it's going to be relaxing, it's going to be enjoyable. Don't worry too much about the final product, because as long as your vision is good, it's going to come together. Like, look at that. I'm so happy with how that's turned out. Maybe at some point later on I will make a door for it, maybe make some windows, things like that, but now is not the time. I had a couple of Woodland Scenics flower effects, so I grabbed a yellow and a pink, less pink, more yellow, but then it looked a little bit too bright, so I also grabbed a little bit of darker mix that I had lying around with a bit of sand and a little bit of dirt, and I just chucked that on top as well, and that made it look a little bit less vibrant. But there you go, and there is a nice creepy house. Honestly, thank you very much for going on this journey with me. This is the first time I've ever made a two-part video, and honestly, the one thing that's always worried me is when you have a two-part video is you really feel like you need to push out part 2, and what happens if it doesn't work? What happens if the model doesn't come out the way that you want it? I'm just really happy that it has turned out the way that it is, and thank you very much for supporting this channel. Please subscribe, please like, hit that bell notification, and of course you might not be able to tell, maybe you can, but I've tried to get a little bit more quality on the audio, so that is that too. Let me know what you think of that. Maybe you have an idea of what you would like to see me make next. Leave it in the comments below. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day. That Bogan plays cards!